All right, guys, this week on the Leadership to Wealth podcast, we're talking about this nonsense called the Canadian Housing Accelerator Fund, which is nothing more than a scam. And I'm going to show it to you and tell you why. We're going to talk about how much money is and isn't going to these different places. We're also going to get into the developers and why the developers aren't building. And then finally, what you should be looking at when we look at this game called Building Wealth. That's this week's episode of the Leadership to Wealth podcast. I know you guys have already seen all of the scams that are coming from the government, but here's another one. This one's called the Home Accelerator Fund.
It's the largest investment yet from the Liberals' signature housing fund.
When we put forward $900 million as Quebec's share of the housing accelerator, the province of Quebec said, okay, we're going to step up and double it.
The combined $1.8 billion will build more than 23,000 homes across Quebec, 8,000 of which will be affordable units.
I'm very happy to be able to have this agreement.
To get that money, François Legault had to agree to speed up the permitting process and require increased density. But Quebec is the only province to get housing cash from Trudeau. In the rest of Canada, the Liberals have cut deals directly with cities, leaving other premiers peeved.
You can't have the federal government going into a certain town or a certain city and dumping funding and not even discussing it with the province. That's unacceptable.
All right, you want to know why the Home Accelerator Fund is a scam? Now, we already know that the Home Accelerator Fund is going to help fast track the building of homes in Canada. Just ask the Liberal government, they'll let you know. Now, here's a couple of things to see. In 2024, they are saying that in Summerside, they are going to build 132 new homes and they're going to give them $5.8 million. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, when you go over to Quebec, they're going to build 2,574 homes. How much are they going to give them? $900 million. Now, what's the difference? The difference is in Summerside, those units are going to cost $43,939 a piece. And then on the other side, you've got Quebec that's going to build them at $349,650 a piece per unit. Now, that is amazing. I mean, it might be 10 times the amount that it costs to build a home in PEI. When we actually look at it, the Home Accelerator Fund does not go towards the building of the homes. When they talk about the unit price of $50,000 or $350,000, they're not talking about the price of the homes. They're actually coming to you and telling you what it's going to cost them per unit to approve the home. That's the scam. That's not even the cost of building the home. That's the cost that they're going to spend just to approve the cost of building the home in these different locations. So when you want to know why housing costs has gone up, well, you can thank this government because each home has gone up by anywhere from at least $40,000 to $350,000 just to get the approvals. That's the Canadian Housing Accelerator Fund. It's accelerating the amount of tax dollars, your dollars and my dollars, that are being turned into oblivion.
So I want to start out with the Housing Accelerator Fund. That it started over 3 years ago. It's $4 billion invested. How many houses have been built?
The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't go toward the cost of building houses. It goes towards incentivizing changes at municipal levels that will speed up permitting processes and end exclusionary zoning and increase density around post-secondary institutions, infrastructure, transit, etc. The nuance in your question is important. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes.
I understand. So how many houses has the Housing Accelerator built? 4 billion and 3 years later.
The Housing Accelerator Fund does a different thing than your question suggests it does.
You know, at the end of the day, Canadians are looking for answers, and we're not looking for promises. They're promising all this building, but really there's no building that's happening. They're talking about really payoffs. Why did they give 900 million to Quebec? Because they're trying to get ready for another election cycle. They're trying to get in there and buy votes. This is a story as old as time, and it has nothing to do with actually helping Canadians. They're actually trying to buy votes. And before you know it, you're going to see them try to outright buy votes with universal basic income. They're going to try to put money in your pocket and my pocket just to be able to buy votes. Never mind what that does to the economy, never mind what it does to affordability. They're just going to go ahead and spend it. Why are they going and spending it in certain areas and not others, dealing with municipalities and not the premiers? Because they are trying to create that distribution. They want people to know that they're putting the money into these places so that you can vote for us at the coming election. Because if it went through the premiers, then they would end up getting the credit for doing good with dividing up that money. And you don't want that happening when it comes time to voting, especially if that premier happens to be a part of the opposition. Now, why is all of this stuff important? Why is all this money that they're putting into the economy important for you and I when it comes to leadership to wealth, when it comes to building our wealth? It's because we know our government is pumping cash into the system. Once upon a time, they had to print the dollars. Now they can just type in ones and zeros into an account. They're not even limited by the speed of the printing press. So what that means is that the value of the Canadian dollar will continue to change. It'll continue to devalue. It'll cost more Canadian dollars to buy a home. And if you want to devalue your dollar, then you invest in these types of things. If you want to increase the value of your dollar, then you take it out of the country. And that's why we're seeing more and more people taking money for investment purposes out of the country, where their dollar will actually hold more value. And it's why you're literally seeing people like myself going down to the US and acquiring property there, because we know that our dollars are being printed into oblivion right now. And so that is the secret that the wealthy do, is they move their money to places where it's protected and can grow, and not just divided up and minimized like we're watching from our government right now here in Canada. You and I, as Canadians, are trying to figure out what we can do to build our wealth. And we think that somehow we can, if we just play the game right, and it is a game, and the reality is it's not playing the game right. It's understanding the game and playing it as it is. You can't try to bring in your way that the game should be. And that's the reality of it. If we watch our government printing money, you need to own assets. If you're watching as the government is allowing deflation to set in, we can see the strength of our dollar increasing, at which point you want to go and get other assets in other countries when your money is worth more. If you're looking at making a purchase on something, you've got to ask yourself, will that grow my wealth or will it take away from it? And that is the game that we're seeing. We have to just be able to look at it and go, come, you and I, just have fun with it and go, this is the game. We might not be able to control the game right now. We've got at least a year and a half before we get to an election, if we're still allowed to vote by then. We've got a year and a half to get to that. In the meantime, join me in playing this game. It's the game that's in front of us, and don't try to make it into something it's not. Just go ahead and invest your money and look for assets that have value and will increase in value while they are out there printing the Canadian dollar into oblivion.